to the Thursday Night Inside Live here on Inside Texas with my guy Evan Veith and Nash Talks Texas. Hey, it's Big Ten Media Days, or at least it was this week. It's a popular topic, Big Ten, SEC, who is a premier conference in college football. Obviously, we'll get into that and a little bit more as we get into the show. And of course, as always, we need your guys' opinion. We want to hear what y'all have to say, but make sure that you have taken advantage. Again, there it is, bang. $1 Inside Texas flash sale. Get On3 and Rivals content as well. And hey, we're days away from fall camp. No reason not to get over there. Come give us a shot. As my guy Justin Wells likes to say, let us earn your dollar. Nash, Evan, and I, are we ready to rock? We're ready to get into the great debate.
The debate of college football these days. Everyone's got to talk about it.
Let me start this all off by saying that I do not care whatsoever. I do not have conference pride. I don't lose sleep over who wins a national championship in which conference. I care about what affects Texas and Texas directly. Clearly, the Big Ten has definitely closed the gap, if not overtaken the SEC with the recent run of national titles. It's a pretty obvious as to why, when you start looking at everything, start collecting all the data points. Evan, I'm going to let you say it because you're going to say it a lot smoother than I will. What is the most noticeable, the biggest, largest reason that the SEC and the Big Ten are a lot closer together than they were about 10 years ago?
One side was paying players under the table, the other wasn't. Now they can pay everyone the same time, and it's good for one side, and it's the same for the other. Let's be real. Let's not beat around the bush. The very top tier of the SEC was not getting every single recruit just because the recruit wanted to, and of course they had better recruiting for most of our lifetimes in the SEC. But at some point there was some shift where the Big Ten ended up getting some really good hires, and a lot of the kind of people in the background were keeping up with the SEC because of the people in their staff and their strength programs or whatever. And then they were just kind of waiting for something to happen, something that would help. And of course that's NIL 2021, 2022 starts. And that also comes with the conference realignment. And of course, Texas has been one of the better players in the SEC the last 2-3 years, but that includes Oregon for the Big Ten, which was a pretty huge one. USC, at some point, USC is going to become a big time contender, whether it's this year, whether it's in the future, whether it's not with Lincoln Riley. They're going to be a part of that. And I think UCLA is on a good uptick at this point in time. Washington is a solid mid-tier team. So NIL made it really possible for Ohio State and Oregon, especially, to get really involved with players and become top-tier recruiters. Oregon was always good at recruiting. They were not Decory Moore good, and they would get their West Coast guys, but not going into Texas and grabbing the best players. So, it made Ohio State better, and Ohio State with Ryan Day finally figured it out with, retention was the big reason they won in 24. Oregon's good, and you know what? It just so happened the Big Ten had the most perfect storm, coaching hire, program resurgence. Who's to say Kurt Signetti couldn't have done that at Arkansas, right? It didn't have to be in the Big Ten they did it, but because he's in the Big Ten, you have to give it to them. So I do think, they've got the coaching right now, and the SEC is trying to get that back a little bit, but especially last year, that was a huge difference. The coaching was way better in the Big Ten, and that's what resulted in, Sark didn't build the right team for Texas last year, but a lot of guys just got fired because they weren't doing a good enough job. I think of LSU and Florida for that. So, coaching, NIL, and expansion helped a little bit, but those are the two big ones. You're muted, Cord.
We're back. I was going to say the transfer portal is another box you could probably, that you could check in that regard, because a lot of the depth on the top end of SEC teams is third or fourth string, freshman and sophomore guys that were easily, you're able to hold on to those guys. Saban did it for a long time. Kirby did it for a long time. Plenty of other coaches. And now those guys, they want their moment. They're ready to go play, and it's a lot easier when they're like, "Hey, I got some money for you too. If you come up north a little bit." Nash, what are your thoughts on the whole SEC versus Big Ten and just the Big Ten narrowing the gap?
Yeah, it's hard to say the Big Ten doesn't have a leg up on the SEC, especially when you're looking. No, it's not. It's not like a massive margin or anything like that, because in 2024, the SEC goes 4-6 against Big Ten teams. Last year they went 3-4. Both times the Big Ten walked away with the national champion. So, you'd have to say over the recent, last two seasons that the Big Ten has an edge. But really, I don't know how. I don't know how much of an edge it is when you're like, trying to quantify it or anything like that, because the SEC could easily go out there and, have a really good season against the Big Ten. I think a lot of it has been, the expansion of these conferences and adding in teams. I think that like this is going to be the new conference arms race when you're looking at like who, not only who's adding them, has the bigger league, but of the top ACC schools, which team's going to go out there and get Miami, right? Which team's going to go out there and get maybe in Virginia Tech or something like that, right? But who's going to get those big teams, from these other conferences before the Big Ten does or the SEC does? Which one gets it first? Which one goes grabs the Big 12 teams? Because that's just what it does feel like. It feels like we're headed towards, just a big, massive arms race between the two conferences.
I want North Carolina. Let's go bring them on. I feel like they're a
typical basketball guy.
SEC. Give me Florida State.
Your, Rutgers to the bottom of the conference for one of the 9 games.
We'll see, and that's the thing too. It's like the SEC went out and added, Texas and Oklahoma. Sure, the SEC added, or the Big Ten added, USC and Oregon and Washington, and I mean that UCLA obviously. But I want to knock Texas A&M and Missouri, but those have been like consistent middle of the pack SEC teams. Or when Maryland gets added, and again, it's hard for us to talk about Maryland too much here, but when Maryland gets added to the conference, and then Nebraska, who is not themselves anymore, they get added to the conference, and Rutgers gets added to the conference. Like that's just the additions have been a little bit different in what they bring to the table and exactly how much pack they punch or punch they pack. So.
Well, one thing I'll give the SEC at the very least, if you want to talk about college expansion being a kind of assist on the sport, whatever, like I get it. Texas and Oklahoma probably shouldn't be in this conference. Neither should Oregon, UCLA be the Big Ten. At least the SEC has kept borders, right? Like, yeah, Missouri is not really the South. Texas is, you're teetering into a whole different culture, but at the very least, they all connect. That's one of the big problems of the Big Ten, and why it really sucks is it feels like you're talking about a conference that's kind of done everything right to game the system. And, SEC should have done better in the way they did it. But at the end of the day, like the Big Ten is not a conference. It is a league. It is just a group of teams. And at least, the very least, the SEC can say, and I was going to bring this up when we were talking about, adding 2 teams, the CSC or the new Save Protect Sports Act, whatever. It's in a weird spot right now. I don't know if anything's actually going to happen with it. But one of their things is they're trying to cap super leagues and cap the amount of teams that can be added. The SEC is probably looking at Miami and Florida State really hard right now, trying to get that in. The Athletic today evaluation article on the top valuing every single FBS team in college football, and I think maybe just Power 4 team in college football. And the only teams that were in the Big Ten or ACC that were in the top 20, and I think top 25 even, were in the ACC. Miami, Florida State, and then Clemson was 25th. So I think those are the 2 teams that they really need to target if they want to get up to the number that the Big Ten is at, and also just add a few more teams to help them, because I don't think Miami is looking at the ACC going anything other than, wow, it's great that we can dominate everyone, but they're not adding much to Miami.
What do you mean? You have a problem with Cal and Stanford flying to the Atlantic coast?
It gets closer for them.
It's just I love you got literal teams that have schools on the beach of Los Angeles, on the beach of California, but they're in the Atlantic Coast Conference. It's just it's a mockery.
Big 12 got UCF, Cincinnati, and BYU. Like,
y'all don't think there are young men in the great state of Oregon dying to one day be an Oregon Duck and travel the country and get into a big time Big Ten matchup with Big Ten rival, the Rutgers Scarlet Knights out of Piscataway, New Jersey? You're like, I don't think there are people in Oregon wanting to do that. Like,
birthplace of college football, you mean?
What's up, Chris Bennett? We appreciate you being here, my man. No Tyler yet. I believe Tyler was in transit today. I think he is making his way to the great state of Texas and doing all the things that that move will entail. But again, very glad and happy to have him on board. Where's the new guy? They want Tyler. We're gonna have to feed Tyler in.
Tyler, hurry up, brother.
Do the show from the car. But no, very excited. He's done a great job with Blue and Gold Illustrated up there in South Bend. And maybe the Big Ten makes Notre Dame choose the conference eventually. Or college football rather makes Notre Dame choose the conference. We know they'll be Big Ten bound, so it's like that would be a pretty big domino. I didn't hear any North Carolina love out of Evan. Really disappointing because he is also a basketball guy.
I am.
I mean,
doesn't sell.
Doesn't sell, but when you get North Carolina, then you all of a sudden you
Hey,
bring in North
get the
Carolina State,
Dukies.
you get Duke, you get the whole region.
North Carolina State is not invited. They can stay over there.
Come on,
Duke,
Evan.
sure, but NC State, come on now.
You got to have a punching bag somewhere, brother. Like, there's got to be somebody. You're
Yeah,
talking about Miami and Florida
Mississippi
State.
State's there for South Carolina outside of women's basketball.
Well, can we bring
Hey.
Central Florida in the mix? Because, like I'm saying, it makes sense geographically.
No,
Orlando's not a
look,
bad time.
I'm all for adding UCF because the UCF. I mean, selfishly, a little upset that I didn't get to go out to Orlando with the Occupy Left Field group because they went out there. They did beers around the world at Epcot. That's something that I really want to do, and I've been ashamed, knowing that I possibly missed my last chance to go out because there's no reason to go for Texas to go travel to UCF unless it's for a conference game. So I'm right on there with adding them in. My other thing too with like the whole that I wanted to add on with like the wins because a lot of times the Big Ten they go, oh well, we have more wins than you when we're playing in conference. They have 4 wins, 3 losses. They have less wins than the Big 12. So does that mean the Big 12 is better than you as a league now? Right? The Big 12 has a leg up on you on wins. I don't know. It's a really nuanced conversation about which conference is the best, but I think you can at least the entire world can agree upon that there's 2 top leagues.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's no question there. 2 super leagues, if you will. I agree with Evan. I don't think either are necessarily conferences at this point. Guys, we're going to do our first ad break of the night, and we'll be right back. And I think we should have the conversation. Who do we think is the best conference? Why we think so? We'll be right back.
Texans know when you're injured, there's one name that gets results: Andre the Lawyer. Trust the team that has secured millions for their clients and helped thousands of Texans win their injury cases. Car wrecks, slip and falls, 18-wheeler accidents, on-the-job injuries, wrongful deaths. Don't let the insurance companies tell you what your claim is worth. Andre the Lawyer will fight for you. His principal office is in Dallas, but they serve Texans throughout the state. So don't wait. Call 214-444-8808. That's 214-444-8808. Contact info is in the description.
All right, guys, welcome back. Who is the best conference? Who do y'all, if you had to pick, if someone's forcing you to choose a side, y'all in the comments let us know as well. SEC, Big Ten, who is the overall strongest conference? Whoever wants it.
I'm letting Nash take it first.
The Pac-12.
Texas State, baby.
If I had, I mean, I don't. This isn't some conference alignment with the conference. I really don't give a crap. I didn't care about I wasn't rooting for Big 12 teams when we were playing in the Big 12. I'm not rooting for SEC teams just because they're in the SEC. But as far as if you're going to look at the athletic department as a whole, I mean, I don't think there's a single conference that's touching what the SEC is doing. SEC is going out there. They're starting to, make some really good basketball teams and becoming a really dominant basketball conference. You look at baseball. No, a lot of baseball is just geographically because it's warmer weather. There's more kids in these lower states that are, have dedicated their, entire sports careers to baseball. But it's just, I think that when you look at, baseball, basketball, and football combined, there's just no conference that does it like the SEC does. And then you start adding in track. That's one area that the Big Ten could really, put a nice claim to now, especially with the addition of Oregon from the Pac-12. But yeah, I would go if I'm especially looking at, conference wise, athletic department wide as a whole, I'm going the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that as far as the whole goes. The Big Ten has had a leg up in basketball for forever, but the SEC has definitely gotten a little better there. As far as if it's football only, I think you have a very top heavy Big Ten. I don't think a lot of people are going to argue that, but it's like the difficulty of the SEC in the middle is, to me, is what makes it stand out as, the more difficult conference to be a part of, because there are very few breaks in its schedule. There are really no breaks, except for Arkansas this year for Texas, because even Mississippi State, by scheme alone, they provide a challenge and they have better athletes in that to run that scheme than they had a year ago. Evan, what are your thoughts? Big Ten, SEC, you can do the whole conference, you can do football, you can do whatever you want.
I think whole conference, it's just there's more money going in, so it's going to be the better athletic department. But they're also, Nash makes a good point. Basketball is getting better, and that was probably the biggest separator for a while. But I think the most damning stat to me is the CFP records, right? In what 3 years now of doing 12 team playoffs. I mean, the SEC's 2-7 against other Power 4 conferences. It's just doesn't look very good, right? Like the problem's been that Georgia was kind of your team, but the 12 team, it's not been great for Georgia, right? I mean, they lost to Notre Dame, and I'm forgetting who this past year they lost to. Ole Miss, but then Ole Miss loses to Miami, and Ole Miss was winning against either G6 teams or an SEC team. So even a run like theirs didn't go over very well. Texas is still the only team that has won playoff games against another conference in the SEC, which is kind of crazy to think about. But if the Big Ten's beating other teams in the highest level of play, the level of play that we actually really care about, I can't not pick them, right? Like at the end of the day, all that really matters is the 12 teams in that playoff, and especially with bowl games not mattering anymore. Like, this is the SEC, I feel like, was one of the conferences that was kind of early on the bowl game stuff because of draft picks, and as it went on, like not mattering as much. And now, like, the SEC is losing bowl games as well. And not that I care, but that's where they would have the leg up, right? Is in those second tier of teams that we always talk about. The SEC second tier is better than the Big Tens. At this point, I'm not sure that's a confirmed fact these days, right? Like, I think Texas and Georgia are good, but I think Indiana, Oregon, Ohio State is better, and that's 3 teams. And I'm not so convinced that like A&M, OU, Ole Miss are like that much leaps and bounds above, the average 3rd, 4th, 5th USC, Penn State, Michigan these days. I mean, Michigan won a national title not that long ago. It's probably not going to be this year. They'll be very good. I think individual years have skewed people's perceptions a lot recently. The SEC had a very, very down year last year. I mean, as down as it can ever really get, for being honest. Texas was the team that people thought was going to be good. They don't make the playoffs. Ole Miss was supposed to be really good. They do make a run there. The coach leaves. LSU was terrible. That's one of your premier teams. Alabama misses the playoff. That's a premier team. So it's just the teams that made the playoffs weren't really built to make big runs. OU, Alabama, A&M, and the ones who didn't were kind of the guys that you're thinking of these days as the number one players in that conference. So I do think the SEC needs another year before we can do these like it's officially dead or whatever. Summerall is probably going to make Florida into a really good team. I have a lot of confidence in him. LSU is going to be really good. Ole Miss is going to be good this year. We'll see about afterwards. So there's definitely a case to be made that 4 through 11 of the SEC is going to be a lot better. It's just like, at the end of the day, I care about the playoff, and I think everyone else cares about who wins in the playoff. And that's been 3 straight Big Ten teams, and they're also better against other conferences. So how can you pick against them?
That's a good point, man. It's hard to pick against the conference that has produced 3 straight national champions. You made a good point earlier in the show talking about the coaching, and I think you just, kind of went back to that point. The SEC is in a better place, I feel like, now than it was a couple of seasons ago. Obviously, Texas and Sark have been really good in the conference. Georgia and Kirby, sure. But LSU, like Florida, like you said, Alabama, which I'm still not sold on Kalen DeBoer in Alabama this particular season. But LSU, again, should be better than they've been in the last couple of seasons. Florida, I think, is going to get a lot closer to being who they, the average Florida Gator team, more so than what they've been the last few seasons. Brent Venables at Oklahoma has done a good job on the defensive side of the ball, and on years where they've got the offense right, they've been really good and always had double-digit wins. A&M and Elko, they've got a good thing going. So, that for the middle of the conference to the top, that is a good sign. I like the hire of, like Will Stein at Kentucky. Obviously, Lee's done good things with Vanderbilt. But yeah, it was a weird couple of years for the SEC because you had Alabama, who even Nick Saban's last team at Alabama with Jalen Milroe running the show, and the team that Texas took down in Tuscaloosa, far cry from your typical Nick Saban or even top end SEC team. I don't know. How does the SEC fight back? Is there a noticeable difference between the two conferences when it comes to that 12-team playoff that you talked about?
Wait, say that one more time. I didn't catch the very last part.
Has there been a big noticeable difference when it comes to 12-team playoffs and how either the Big Ten are taking down the SEC is? Is it just, hey, they're getting out coached, they're getting out schemed? Have they just really evened out the level of athlete that's on the field?
I think more than anything, it is the SEC taking a bit of a step back, right? Like, those Georgia pre-NIL rosters, like specifically 21, 22, when it was just starting to be NIL, but like really the 2022 season was not impacted by it much. Those teams were just juggernauts. I mean, they were clearly the best team in college football those years, and it showed up that way. Georgia's no longer a team that we can say is clearly the best. And I think there has been some regression a little bit in their player development, right? Like last year's edge rush group was not very good. I mean, that's what you think about Georgia, is that these linebackers and edge rushers that go ahead and get a quarterback with great tight ends, and the tight ends are still there. D-line and trenches are still there, not getting the pass to the quarterback. Nick Saban retired. That matters a lot. LSU was not the 2019 LSU team that had assembled back then. So I think the SEC teams are just worse, and that comes with the Oregons and of course Indiana now, but really Oregon and Ohio State getting that next level, getting above and starting to win some games where they just weren't. Oregon wasn't quite that type of contender before the 12 team. And I think about like the year they 2023 was a really fun year of college football at the top, right? Like the playoff was so close. A team that was undefeated didn't get in. Georgia missed out because of one game at the very end of the year. Ohio State missed out because they lost to Michigan. Like that was Oregon missed out because they couldn't beat Washington. That was a great year of football with very balanced teams. That you can literally see where that separation goes, where the SEC was up here before that year starting to approach, and that Big Ten's just taken off since then. So yeah, I'm looking towards, that's the year Saban retired. Kirby Smart hasn't had a team as good since then, even though that 25 team had some talent. There's just been a difference in the level of player and the level of coach that's been in these conferences, and the Big Ten's finally ahead, which it hadn't been ever, at least not in my life.
Yeah, I mean that is well said. The money is a big part of it. I mean, you got to look at when the NIL came around. That's when quickly saw a change up. You started to see the top end teams of the Big Ten, the speed of the players on the Big Ten. That was such a big difference. I feel like the speed of the two conferences were not really in the same ballpark. Yeah. We're going to keep going here, guys. We're going to do our last ad break of the night, and we'll see you in 1 second.
Big financial decisions don't have to feel overwhelming. There's someone who can guide you every step of the way. David McClellan is a fiduciary financial advisor with Forum Financial, and he's working closely with his clients as a true financial life coach, guiding every aspect of your financial journey with expertise and care. If his name sounds familiar, that's because David was a swimmer at Texas and a member of several national championship teams. Today, he channels that same championship mindset into helping people win with their finances. David specializes in financial planning, and he's contributed numerous articles to Kiplinger on the topic of retirement tax bombs. And right now, David is offering viewers a free intro consultation to assess your financial situation. Do not miss this chance to get personalized guidance from a trusted expert. To schedule your free consult, email David at dmcclellan@forumfinancial.com, or you can call him directly at 312-933-8823. The contact info is in the description.
Hey guys, welcome back to Inside Texas. We all appreciate you watching. Make sure that you've thrown a like on the video and that you are subscribed, both of course to InsideTexas.com and then here on YouTube as well. Is Ghost officially dead? No, the 40-acre vibe handle, that is dead. And then I came on to Inside Texas and immediately didn't change it. Ended the show like 2 hours after I posted that. But yeah, no, I can't get rid of the ghost. I feel like that would be a slap in the face to the whole thing. So, and for those that only watch on YouTube and have no idea what we're talking about, I apologize. Please forgive us. But no, Chris, appreciate all the support, my man. You've been with me since the very beginning. Big Ten ball, or Big Ten is just better. I think this is a year that you're going to see absolutely Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, potentially Georgia. I'm still not completely sold on Gunnar Stockton. Maybe an LSU. Clear cut. It's almost going to feel like conference versus conference, but I feel like any of those four, to me, in my eyes, can duke it out in battle and could win a national title. I think that we'll see a motivated Georgia side. Again, Evan makes a point. Player development potentially slipping a little bit. Hard to necessarily fix in 1 year unless you have the right people and right players, in the mix. I don't know. If you had to pick one school this particular season from each conference that you most expect to at least make their run, you know what I mean? And for the SEC, it has been Texas. Texas made the best runs of the SEC as of late up until Ole Miss last year. Texas has kind of helped that conference out a lot because, like Evan said, Georgia's kind of faltered when it comes to that 12-team playoff. But What do you think? Most likely matchup, we get a Big Ten versus SEC Natty. What are we thinking? Who we got?
I'll give my props to Ari Wasserman of On 3 because he, I'll eventually do my full prediction as I hear a little more from camp. But I think it's going to be hard for me to not pick the championship game to be Texas Oregon. I think those are the two best rosters in the sport. I think it's two great coaches who, save me that they haven't won it yet. No one has won it yet. The last 4 or 5 coaches hadn't won it yet when they won their title. Mario Cristobal was a joke for not being able to win. He made the title game. So, I don't think them not having won is a good enough excuse. And it's just two rosters that have been built for this year that I think are ready to kind of get over their humps, respectively. With Oregon, they've beaten Ohio State, but really solidifying themselves as the best team in the Big Ten has been a problem. And Texas is obviously Georgia and Ohio State. I think Texas gets the Ohio State win this year. Maybe they don't beat Georgia, but they're going to be the last SEC team standing. And I think Oregon's the best roster in the Big Ten, and I don't think Cignetti's team is so much, such a perfect culmination that they're going to be better than that. And I think Oregon's better than Ohio State. Those are my two picks.
Why do you think Oregon's better than Ohio State? My big hangup is what Oregon has looked like when they've got to that 12-team playoff, what they look like in the Rose Bowl, what they look like in their loss last year. Not competitive at all. What makes you think, what puts you, in your eyes, what puts Oregon's roster above Ohio State's and the rest of that conference?
I think two things. I've got a little more confidence in Dante Moore than Sayin, and I know they're both not finished products, but I think Moore just fits what I like in a quarterback, which is some size. Doesn't have to be super mobile, but a little more shiftiness, and then he can hit a seam shot like anybody in the country. He's very accurate, and that I think it's what Sayin gets a lot of love for, but I think Moore is right there with him. And then I do think their defense is going to be better, and I know that's saying a lot, but Oregon on paper has the best defense in the country, and I don't think it's close. But that's on paper that you make the point about the 12-team playoff, but you just got to go play the games. And I think when they play the games, I'm going to favor them over most of the teams they play. I think they got great group of pass catchers, great group of running backs. O-line is, maybe a question, but whose O-line is not a question. That they hit the portal well last year with it. So I just think that they're the better team. What hangs me up on Ohio State is they just don't have, outside of Smith and maybe Sayin, maybe Jackson, these superstar players aren't there anymore. I mean, it's just hard to lose 4 top 11 picks or whatever it was. I just think it's going to be a tiny bit less star power there that makes the difference.
How about you, Nash? What do you think?
Or you want my overall?
Evan did a really good job of ducking having to answering the SEC side of that equation. I don't think we got an SEC answer. Did you give this one?
I think Georgia wins the title game and Texas goes farther in the playoff.
Fair. Okay, I'd accept that. And Nash, now you go ahead. My bad.
My follow-up question to that would be, which one do you care more about? I think I know your answer, obviously, but
playoff probably.
Yeah, playoff.
Unless it's like one got to the quarterfinals, one was out in the first round, like that. Then there's no difference.
All right. So for my, each conference, cop out for my first conference will be the Independents. I will take Notre Dame to make the college football playoff out of the independent group. It's hard. I don't see Indiana doing a repeat. I know a lot of people are high on Indiana this year. I do agree that Oregon is on paper they're the most talented. They're the most talented roster in the Big Ten. But there's a reason why games are played in football field, right? There's a reason why you don't write things off just because they're on paper. They do have to play each other, Ohio State and Oregon. I think maybe it's just me, going to a crutch of Ohio State's been really good and just trusting that because it's going to keep on, churning out more times than not. I'll probably go with Ohio State. A part of me really wanted to go with an underrated like USC. Well, right there, get wild, get risky. ACC, I got Miami easily. I think that's just by and far the best team that you're going to see out there. It's tough with the Big 12 because I don't know if they're going to do anything, but I think that when you're looking at the end of the season for the Big 12, Texas Tech, their schedule is such a cream puff schedule that it's hard to see any other team being below what Texas Tech is going into the season. I don't think they're going to do much, but that, and then for the SEC, one year I got to be right. 1 year I got to be right. I'm going Texas Longhorns. I mean, one year, the dam's got to break at one point, right? Maybe not. Maybe I'll just die heartbroken for the rest of my life. But yeah.
Hey, I like it, man. Notre Dame's going to be really, really good, too. I think they'll be properly motivated, but I feel like the football gods might reach out, smack down Notre Dame. You can't cancel a bowl. You can't skip out on a bowl game. I'm just saying.
I'd love it.
I believe in those things. I believe in them. Give me Texas out of the SEC. I think that Georgia wins. Georgia and Texas make the SEC championship game with Georgia having a bit of an easier schedule, but Texas, I like them in the 2 seed. I like Texas to finally get over Georgia. And I mean, again, I like their chances to have the best run of any SEC team. If I have to pick someone out of the Big Ten, it's hard against Ohio State because they have been so good for so long. They've been really good in the playoff. I lost Brian Hartline. That's intriguing, at least a little bit, especially if you're in the you like to dabble in the recruiting world whatsoever. I don't want to pick Dante Moore and Dan Lanning, who've looked terrible come playoff time in the last 2 seasons, but I kind of feel like I have to. I just don't know what it is. I don't love this Ohio State offense. Again, I think there's a little bit of a lacking when it comes to playmakers, and also curious to see just how Julian Sand looks in year 2. Again, we're hoping our quarterback has grown. Oh, absolutely. A ton of pressure, and can't really use his legs the way that Arch Manning can. We'll see, though. Time will tell. It's going to be a lot of fun. Ohio State, every time I doubt them, they somehow just slap me in the face. And I'm probably going to I can't believe I've got the wager going that I do. Texas by double digits over Ohio State, but I'm going to stand on it. That is a wager made with myself, and we're not backing down. So anyways, it is what it is. We did, yep, there you go. You've seen a lot of Texas hype. You've seen some Oklahoma hype in the SEC of well as of late. Of course, plenty of Oregon hype, Ohio State, Georgia. Any surprise teams that you guys could see from either conference? Anyone that could shock you that, you got maybe just a littlest feeling could make a run?
I mean, I see the Ole Miss because a lot of, what made it happen. Chambliss, Lacey, Golding was the coach in the playoff. It works, and I think they could make the playoff. They just have a really tough schedule. And I'm like, is 9-3, is Ole Miss the 9-3 team? Like, if we're going to do that, is it going to be Ole Miss? Maybe not. Nash, I didn't hate your USC shout. They're like first among real teams in returning production. Mayava is a stud. Lincoln Riley offense. The wide receivers are kind of your question because they're not proven, but it's Lincoln Riley offense. And, I don't know how much the Gary Patterson change matters, but if USC has a defense to play in the playoff, then that's a real team to look out for.
And here's the other thing too. If we're sitting in a situation where USC is even in the talking, points for getting into the college football playoff, their schedule this year is they got Oregon, they got Washington, they're going to Penn State, they got Ohio State, they're going to Indiana. So they're immediately playing all the top teams from the Big Ten. They're playing a bunch of the teams that are probably filling as the second tier teams in the Big Ten. If they're at all in a situation where they have 2 losses going in late in the season against Maryland or UCLA at UCLA, I mean, this is a legitimate, not just get into the door contender, but actual national championship contender team that I think the conversation really, really could start to heat up with them in a matter of 5 weeks. As far as also really kind of under the radar, maybe one more I might say is Washington. I think Washington could have a sneaky year. And they don't. Here's the deal: is they unlike Oregon, they don't play a lot of not Oregon. Unlike USC, they don't play a lot of top heavy teams. Now they do play at USC. They got the Iowa Hawkeyes, Penn State as well. But then outside of that, those are their only preseason ranked games that they have. And then they got Indiana and Oregon for the last 2 games. So there could easily be a situation where they find themselves, they've wandered through their schedule and they're sitting there undefeated after Michigan State going, we're booked a playoff contender. We're booked a playoff team because even if we do lose to Indiana and Oregon, sitting there at 10-2, you got to like your odds in the Big Ten to, make the college football playoff as a 10-2 team. So Washington would be, if I couldn't take a USC, Washington would be my under the radar Big Ten team.
That's respectful. I feel like USC and Ole Miss were like what 4th and 3rd in their conferences voting. So I don't even know if they're underdogs. I want to throw this team out. I haven't had a chance to talk about them much, dude. Throw me on the Cal train. Cal out of the ACC. It's got buzz. It could happen. JKS is unreal. Their quarterback, the lefty, like that guy, and he has like 2 NFL draft pick receivers and Washington's running back from last year. Like legit offense. I don't know how good their defense is going to be without Wilcox. I mean, they got Oregon's defensive guy to come in there. So there's a world where their schedule's not that hard. If they are like one upset and then just beat teams who aren't that good, they might be in the playoff with like what Cal. Come on, who would have thought that's coming? Evan did.
Hey, I'm not going to lie to you. I took a hard look at Cal because of the playmakers you just mentioned. Don't love the offensive line. I'm not super in love with the O-line, but who does have some protection and some big daddies protecting him? Kevin Jennings. He's got PJ Williams, Joshua Bates. SMU's got some future Sunday players on that offensive line. They've got a lot of talent, and they've got a weaker conference. No, obviously not in the Cal, but talking about SEC Big Ten. Watch out. I had to bring up SMU because I like that point, Joshy, and I'm big on the Kevin Jennings train. Big fan of him. As far as SEC Big Ten, I am pretty high on Oklahoma. I do think that if Mateer is healthy, that they're going to be a really, really tough out, especially when it comes to playoff time. You give Venables a little bit of extra time to prepare. Is he the focal point of that offense? So that's a big question mark. Not saying that I expect him to go like win an Natty or anything like that, but as far as, hey, he can maybe go shock some teams as far as upside and win a playoff game or two. I'll say them. I like Ole Miss a lot, to be honest with you, Evan. I like Kiwan. I like Trinidad. I like the motivation factor. I love Pete Golding as far as the defensive mind. But I'm going to go. I'll do this.
Were we a year too early on South Carolina?
I was a year too early on South Carolina, but I haven't slowed down because I love Lenoris, and they've done so much better of a job getting the right guys in there to help with that run game. That offensive line is going to look a lot better, but still not. And how good are they defensively? You know what I mean? But here you go. If I have to pick a wild card, like a true wild card to, like, let's say, win a playoff game, and you both know I'm high on them. I was actually talking to Evan I was talking to myself with Evan definitely right beside me. And I was like, there's no way I can pick Florida 4th in the SEC poll. There's just no way you can do it. Give me Florida as a surprise. I've got them at 9-3 right now. That could be enough to get in the door.
Yeah, that could. It really,
especially in the SEC.
I'm saying, depending on what we value these days in college football.
And this conference is going to grovel when it comes time to. No matter, there is going to be probably 3 SEC teams who are going to get in, and then there's going to be a 9-3 team who. Texas, Oklahoma, Ole Miss. It could even be Florida, but probably one of those 3 teams, given who they're playing overall, that they're going to be pushing for that 9-3, 11 spot.
Like South Carolina was 2 years ago, and I think that they should have got in.
And they had a real argument. That field was really bad. I mean, the ACC was terrible that year. It's crazy Clemson kept that game close with Texas for that long.
Yeah. My true wild card out of all the conferences is going to be 2026 Louisville.
Oh, I don't know about Keenholz.
Here's the deal: if Louisville beats Ole Miss out the gate, SMU and Georgia Tech are pretty much the only real monsters on the schedule left. They could find themselves in a really, really good spot. And then everybody's like looking up, like, wait, is that Louisville in the CFP rankings really high? Yes, that is.
And that's what Georgia Tech was last year.
And this would honestly kind of be a conversation worth revisiting in the postseason. What if there's a situation where you got a one-loss Louisville who's taken down Ole Miss, right? Who looks like they're playoff bound, and Florida's sitting there on the cusp of 9-3, and you're sitting there like, do we send in like a maybe
Florida better make sure they beat Ole Miss when Ole Miss comes to the swamp the week after they have to deal with the Lane Kiffin show.
You could have SMU undefeated with a win over Notre Dame.
I don't think they're going to do a two-loss difference. I think it's going to be the pushing for the 9-3, 10-2 difference. It's so hard to pick 2 games ahead of a team.
Yeah, you can finish 11-1. Like I feel like you're the 9-3 teams. You've cleared yourself from those conversations at least. But It's going to be
You know.
fun. It's going to be chaos as always. It's crazy how close we are to it. We all know how fast it'll come and go. So make sure you appreciate every second of it. Soak it all in, guys. Make sure that you're doing that, though, over at InsideTexas.com. And just a reminder, $1 flash sale that gets you inside Texas access on 3 rivals as well. But hey, we really appreciate all y'all watching tonight. Make sure, though, that you've thrown a like on the video and, of course, are subscribed both to YouTube, InsideTexas.com as well. That's Evan. That's Nash. I'm Cord. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching Inside Texas, guys.